All right, does everybody have a handout? Anybody not have a handout that wants one? They're worth a lot of money. They're valuable. All right, let's go ahead and get started. This is lesson 8 in our series on working and winning with people. We've taken a look so far at 3 questions in regard to working and winning with people and principles that will help us to answer these questions. And we've talked about the ready. I don't want to go back and review them all, but we've talked about the readiness question. Are we prepared for relationships? We talked about the connection question. And with each one of these, we've talked about different principles. But the connection question, are we willing to focus on others? And then last week, we began looking at the trust question. Can we build mutual trust? Last Wednesday night, we looked at 2 principles. First of all was the bedrock principle. The bedrock principle states this: trust is the foundation of any relationship. I think we understand that the reason for most breakdowns in relationships has to do with broken trust, okay? It's easy to break trust. It's much more difficult to build that trust back up. And so the reason for most breakdowns in relationships is a lack of trust. And so if you boil relationships down, I think to the most important element in a relationship, it's always going to be trust. Whether it's a marriage, whether it's a coworker relationship, whether it's a parent-child relationship, whatever it's going to be, I think the most important element there is going to be trust. And so we're talking about this trust question. Can we build mutual trust? Because if you don't have trust, the relationship's in trouble, right? And so this is important. And so we looked at the bedrock principle that trust is the foundation of any relationship. The question we've got to ask ourselves is, am I a trustworthy person? And then we also last week looked at the situation principle. Never let the situation mean more than the relationship. And I think this is crucial, that we never let the situation mean more than the relationship. Never put a situation ahead of relationships, okay? And sometimes that's easy to do if we're not careful. But relationships are so very important. And then tonight, we're going to look at 3 principles. First of all, which is the third principle under the trust question, is the Bob principle. The Bob principle. The Bob principle states this: when Bob has a problem with everyone, Bob is usually the problem. And by the way, we're just using Bob. That's just the name that John Maxwell uses. I'm using the same name. I don't think we have any Bobs in here. Bob Lindner was just in my D group just a few minutes ago, and I told him that we're going to be talking about him all service tonight. But it's not a particular Bob. This is anybody who falls into this category. But when Bob or anybody has a problem with everyone, Bob is usually the problem. So the question we've got to ask ourselves is, am I a Bob? Or, for you ladies, am I a Bobby? All right? That don't even work, does it? Where's Bobby Truitt at? But we'll use Bobby as the female term, all right? That's with the IE, not with a Y, though, okay? But Bob or Bobby, am I a Bob? Again, here's the Bob principle. So I want you to think with me. If Bob has a problem with Bill, and Bob has a problem with Fred, Bob has a problem with Sue, Bob has a problem with Judy, Bob has a problem with Roy, would you assume probably that Bob is usually probably the problem? We probably all know individuals who have problems with everybody they run into, okay? By the way, we need to go back to the mirror principle, right? The first person we must look at is us in the mirror, because it may be us that is the problem. And sometimes that's hard to do. Sometimes it's hard to be honest with ourselves and realize that we may be the problem. But if Bob has a problem with all these individuals, you know, Bill may not be the problem. Fred may not be the problem. Sue may, if Bob has a problem with all these people, the problem is probably Bob. Okay? And so we're going to talk about this Bob principle. And I'm going to give you an illustration. How many of you ever heard of Billy Martin? Any baseball fans? All right. Billy Martin. If you know anything about Billy Martin, he was always a man. He was kicking dirt and covering up the bases and on the diamonds and fussing out the umpires. And Billy Martin had a problem with his temper. Okay, and if you follow baseball, you've seen Billy Martin. I remember seeing him as a kid. And it was like Billy Martin always was having problems with people. And so John Maxwell talks about Billy Martin. He said on June 23rd, 1988, Billy Martin was fired as the manager of the New York Yankees. No big deal. There's been a lot of managers fired, right? A lot of managers fired from the New York Yankees. Do we have any Yankees fans in here? All right, we got a few. That's the reason Mike knows a lot about Billy Martin. But what was different about this firing of Billy Martin was that he was fired from his job as the Yankees manager for the 5th time. 5 times he was fired as the manager of the New York Yankees. So if you go back earlier when he was a baseball player in 1950, he came to the Yankees, called up by the Yankees as a second baseman. And they said Martin's life was never had smooth sailing. He said the problem was that he often seemed to have a hard time getting along with people. He said the reason he left the Yankees after 7 seasons was because he was traded following a big fight in a nightclub involving other Yankees players. They said it wasn't his first fight, nor would it be his last fight. After Martin left the Yankees, he played for 6 other teams in 4 years: the Athletics, the Tigers, the Indians, the Reds, the Braves, and the Twins. He retired in 1961 and went on to coach. In 1969, he became a manager. But everywhere he went, trouble followed Billy Martin. He was legendary for the fist fights that he started. And he said Billy Martin was continually ejected from games and often suspended for his treatment of umpires. He didn't get along with the owners of the teams that employed him either. Pulitzer Prize-winning sports columnist Jim Murray said this of Billy Martin, and I'll end the illustration of Billy Martin. He said this: some people have a chip on their shoulder. Billy has a whole lumberyard. And so Billy Martin was a manager and a player, but Billy Martin always had problems with everybody else. What did Billy Martin probably need to do? He probably needed to look in the mirror, right? And realize that he was probably the Bob that we're talking about. In this case, he was the Billy, but he was the Bob that we're talking about, and he was probably the problem. I mean, you can't have a problem with that many other people and everybody else be the problem, right? And so this is the Bob principle. So I want to give you some very quickly, I'm going to give you some characteristics of a person who seems to have problems with everyone. Now, I know that's not you, okay? But all of us probably know people that would fall into this category. And so I'm going to give you some things to help them, all right? Because it's none of us, all right, right? And so here are some characteristics of a person who seems to have problems with everyone. Number 1, Bob is a problem carrier. Bob is a problem carrier. John Maxwell, in his book, gives an illustration. John Maxwell was a former pastor, and he's pastored, I think, a couple of different churches. But he gave an illustration in his book about when he was a pastor. He had a board, a group of guys that were the board, a deacon board, advisory board, elder board, whatever they called them. I'm not for sure. But it seems like he said he had board members coming to him and were saying that I'm hearing a lot of things that people are not happy with. So this board member would come to John Maxwell and say, I'm hearing a lot of things that people are not happy with. And then he would have another board member come and say, Brother Maxwell, I'm hearing some things that people are not happy. And so John Maxwell began thinking. He said, first of all, I looked at myself in the mirror. He said, I looked at myself. Can I be the problem? Because he said, I very well could be the problem. And so, but he had several board members to do the same thing. And so it just kept happening. And so John Maxwell had a board meeting, and he said this. He said, we came to a conclusion. Okay? If I had a board member or somebody else come to me that somebody else had a problem with something, they could not go to him and tell him that there were people talking and had problems without giving him the source of the problem. So in other words, if they had heard that somebody had some problems with things, he said, don't come to me unless you tell me who the individual is. So they made that kind of rule among him and the board. And so it came to pass, and so their next meeting, same board member came to him and said, hey, I'm still hearing these things, and so what's your source? So the board member told him the source of where the problems were coming from. And then the other board members said, before he told them the source, I'm hearing some of the same things. And so every board member went around, and guess what? The source from every one of those board members was the same individual or two individuals. So all those issues, John Maxwell said, it all came back to one or two individuals when he was led to believe, man, this is widespread. And it came down to two individuals, he said. He said it's like an old farmer who went to the restaurant owner to find out if he wanted to buy 1 million frog legs. And so when the owner asked him where he could get that many frog legs, he replied, he said, I've got a pond at my house, and they're just full of frogs. He said, they're driving me crazy night and day. And so they make an agreement. And made an agreement, okay, you bring me several hundred frog legs. And so the person went back, and after a week, the farmer came back. And he came back with 2 scrawny sets of frog legs and a foolish look on his face. And he said to the owner, I guess I was wrong. There were just 2 frogs in the pond, but they sure were making a lot of noise. By the way, that's the same thing that happens sometimes, not just in churches, but it happens at work. It happens in every area. Sometimes it can be 1 or 2 that make a lot of noise. Are you with me? John Maxwell called them croakers. The frogs. Croakers can make a lot of noise. He said many times you'll find that 1 or 2 people can make a lot of noise because problem carriers spread the poison far and wide. I've learned that if people come to me and tell me that there are lots of complaints, then I need to find out the source, because it normally turns out that it comes down to a few people that's making all the noise. So my philosophy is Barney Fife mentality. Just nip it in the bud, right? And so, I think that's what's got to take place. Because Bobs are problem carriers, okay? They carry problems everywhere they go, okay? They have a problem at church. They have a problem at work. They have a problem at home. They have a problem when they go to Walmart. They have a problem at Food Line. They have a problem everywhere they go, okay? And they're going to find a problem with everything. Why? Because Bobs are problem carriers. Number 2, not only are they problem carriers, but they are problem finders. Not only do they carry the problems, but they love finding problems. Bob loves to create problems, and he usually involves others in what he is doing. Every problem starter is like a fire lighter, okay? Every Bob, if you will, is like a fire lighter. Each of us, if we're not a Bob, each of us is like a person carrying 2 buckets. One of those buckets is filled with water, and one of those buckets is filled with gasoline. So when a Bob comes to us, we have 2 choices with our 2 buckets. We can douse it with water and put the fire out, or we can douse it with gasoline and do what? Cause a lot more damage, right? And make everything worse. But Bob, he's a problem finder. He's a problem creator. Did I say a problem carrier? he's a problem creator, I should have said, because he loves to create problems. And number 3, let me back up. I'm actually missing one. Carrier, yes. For some reason, I am missing one in my notes. I'm not for sure why. Somehow I've omitted the first one. So he's a problem carrier. That was number 1. He is a problem carrier. Yes. For some reason, I omitted it in my notes. I'm not for sure why. He is a problem finder. Number 3, he is a problem creator. Again, he loves to create those problems. And then number 4, he is a problem receiver. So a problem receiver is this. He encourages people to bring problems to him. And not just to be a help, but to be a garbage dump. He don't mind just people dumping all the problems on him or her. And so what happens if you're a garbage dump, what you're doing is you're inviting people to dump all their problems on you, right? So what's going to happen? They're going to continue to bring to the garbage dump. They're going to continue to unload their problems. And so what do you do if you have a Bob or a Bobby in your life? What do you do? Let me give you several things real quick. 4 things real quick. Number 1, respond with a positive comment. So if you have a Bob come to you, and he carries it to you, he does all these things, and he brings it to you, number 1, respond with a positive comment. See the bright side. If it's about a person, maybe point out a positive trait maybe that you've seen in that individual. So if somebody comes to you about somebody else, make a positive comment about the person he's coming to you about, that maybe you've witnessed, that maybe you've seen through your own eyes. But respond with a positive comment. In other words, don't feed into what Bob is telling you. Does that make sense? Respond with a positive comment. Because if you feed into it, you're being just as guilty as Bob. So respond with a positive comment. Number 2, show your concern for someone being criticized. If Bob comes to you and begins to criticize someone, show your concern for the person being criticized. In other words, give that person the benefit of the doubt. See the best in others. We talked about that in another principle. Believe the best in others. Until they prove to you otherwise, believe the best in them. Number 3, encourage steps toward resolution. Encourage steps toward resolution. Because if they come to you about someone else, what would that be considered? Gossip. So what you've got to do is you've got to encourage steps toward resolution. And the best way to deal with gossip is to what? Shut them down and tell them to do what? To go talk to the person that they have problems with. Okay? Go directly. That's Matthew chapter 18, right? Principle. But the best way to deal with gossip is to direct them to the one with whom they have an issue. Don't get involved in gossip. And so what you've got to do is you've got to encourage those steps toward resolution. And then number 4, and this may not go over well with Bob, okay? But ask Bob to think before speaking. Ask Bob to think before speaking. And I want to give you an acrostic that I think can be super helpful, not just for the Bobs in our life, but for every one of us. Before we speak, think. Okay? And here's an acrostic that I think is very valuable in all of our relationships. Letter T. This is an acrostic of think. Is it true? Is it true? Because number 1, we don't want to spread lies, right? So you got to ask yourself, is it true? And by the way, you may not know if it's true or not. So you got to find out, right? Is it true? Letter H, is it helpful? Is it helpful? Letter I, is it inspiring? Letter N, is it necessary? And letter K, is it kind? So if you ask those 5 questions before you speak, I think it would help every one of us. You take away the Bob issue, I think this acrostic would help every one of us to think before we speak. Is it what I'm going to say? Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? And if it's not those 5 things, keep your mouth shut. I think that would be wise words, right? And so ask Bob to think. Now, Bob may not like it when you say you need to think before you speak. Because Bob is not the problem, right? In his mind. Everybody else is the problem. So in Bob's mind, he's thinking before he's speaking. He thinks. So get him to think before speaking. But if he can answer yes to all of these questions, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Then maybe it's appropriate for him to proceed. But more than likely, he's not going to answer yes to all 5 of those questions. And I think those are very helpful words. Now I want to ask this question. So we've talked about other people being a Bob that comes to us, right? Somebody else being a Bob. But I want to ask you this. How do you know if you're a Bob or a Bobby? How do you know if you're one of those that fit into this category? Well, let me give you 5 things real quick to ask yourself, and then we'll move on to the next principle. How to know if you're a Bob. Number 1, do I experience some kind of conflict almost every day? Are you born for conflict? Conflict just follows you. Number 2, do people often rub me the wrong way? And if this is a constant thing in your life, then maybe you're a Bob. Number 3, do bad things just naturally happen to me? Amen. Well, we've got a Bob sitting here tonight, amen? That's why I said definitely. Do bad things just naturally happen to me? Number 4, do I have a few friends and wish I had more? And number 5, do I always seem to say the wrong thing? You answer those questions to find out if you're a Bob. Do I experience some kind of conflict almost every day? Do people rub me often the wrong way? Do bad things just naturally happen to me? Do I have a few friends and wish I had more? And do I always seem to say the wrong thing? Well, if you answer yes to those questions, well, guess what? Congratulations. You're probably Bob. By the way, is that the end of all ends? No. You can change from being a Bob, right? And so that's the Bob principle. By the way, I think that's one of the best principles that he covers in his book, because number 1, it's hard to have a relationship with Bob, right? I don't know about you, but I don't think I would enjoy hanging around Bob. Would you? Maybe some of you. Would you enjoy hanging around a Bob that's always has drama, always has problems with other people? Probably not. So what do we do when there's a Bob in our life? And then what if we're the Bob? So that's the Bob principle. Number 4. The next principle is any questions on the Bob principle or comments before I move on? Don't feed. I'll tell you. Oh, well, I will retract the statement that I was getting ready to make. So how do you? This is not on live stream, is it? No. But so how do you get rid of it? Well, number one, don't feed into the negativity. Okay? Again, Barney Fife, nip in the bud. Okay? Don't give in to the negativity. And if it's a problem with everybody else, encourage that individual to go to those people that they have problems with. Because if you don't feed into it and you don't listen to it, then probably they're not going to continue to go to you. They're going to go to somebody else. You can deter them to somebody else. Yes, yeah, and that's, sometimes you have to do that, particularly when it's very close proximity. So that's a little more difficult. But again, don't feed into the negativity and try to stop it in its tracks as soon as possible. Yeah. The next principle is the approachability principle. The approachability principle states this: being at ease with ourselves helps others to be at ease with us. So don't answer this question aloud. Would you be considered to be a very approachable person? In other words, is it easy for people to come to you? Do you have that presence about you that people feel comfortable coming to you? And so let's talk about what this approachability principle means. And I think it really states it in the principle. First of all, you got to be at ease with yourself. You got to be at ease with yourself in order to help others to be at ease when they come into your presence. So the question we've got to ask ourselves is this: would my friends say that I'm easy to approach about difficult issues? By the way, I have to stop and think very quickly because of my position as a pastor. It's not good for a pastor not to be approachable. It's not good at all. So I hope all of you would say that I am very approachable, because if not, that's something that I need to work on, because the pastor of a church needs to be approachable. I've heard pastors say, I don't mind preaching a sermon, but I don't like dealing with people. And I've heard pastors make that comment. And if you don't like people and don't like to deal with people, then maybe you're in the wrong calling. Because I think a pastor needs to be very approachable. And so the question is this: how do we put people at ease? How do we become more approachable for people? So think about it this way. Think about all the people in your life that you feel are approachable. Because we all know people who are more easily to approach and more difficult to approach, right? So think about those people who are more approachable. And I think you will find that they have these characteristics. Okay? Let me give them to you very quickly. Number one, they have personal warmth. In other words, they truly like people. But I don't think it takes long to be in the presence of someone and to determine whether they like people or they don't like people, right? And if they don't like people, let's be honest, it's going to be very difficult to approach them. Some of you work in areas of your work, employment, where you have people that they answer to you. So, I think this is something good that we can apply to our life, whether it's, whether it's in the military and you have people up underneath you. By the way, man, let me shout out real quick to my man AJ here. He's going to have his whole workforce here at church. Amen. He had a couple, husband and wife, kids here Sunday. He had another coworker. She's been here now 3 times. And so good job, AJ. And but I know AJ falls in this category. Many of you other ones fall in this category where people answer to you. It could be that you're a dream team leader and you have people up underneath you, that are looking to you and answer to you ultimately. And so what would they say? Are you approachable? I think approachable people have these characteristics. Number one, they have personal warmth. They just like people. right? They truly like people, because you can tell when somebody does not like people, and you can also feel it when people are genuinely care for people. There's an old Peanuts comic strip in which Charlie Brown said this: "I love mankind, it's just people I can't stand." By the way, wouldn't the world be a much, I mean, if we didn't have to deal with people, wouldn't life just be so much greater? It would be boring, right? Because that's what this life consists of. And so personal warmth is a characteristic of people that are approachable. Number two, they have an appreciation for the differences in people. They have an appreciation for the differences in people. In other words, they appreciate people for who they are, knowing that every one of us are different. Okay? Every one of us are different. And people may say about us, man, they're different. Not in a good way sometimes either, right? But they're just different. But people who are easily approachable, they appreciate the differences in people. In other words, they don't judge everybody. They don't judge the book by the cover. And they appreciate the fact, hey, that God made everybody different. That every individual was created in the image of God. And by the way, we've got to understand that when we're dealing with people, they may get on our, they may be a Bob. Yeah, they may get on our everlasting nerve. But we got to remember that they are somebody who's been created in the image of God, and God has a purpose for their life. And so a person that's easy to be approached, they understand and appreciate the differences in people. Number three, easily approachable people have consistency of mood. They have consistency of mood. In other words, they're not a super moody individual. Their moods are consistent. Have you ever worked with or for someone whose moods were up and down all the time? And when you walked in the office every morning, you had to whisper to a coworker, "Psst, what kind of mood are they in today?" And you had to kind of tiptoe around, right? If you have to ask that question about someone, they're probably not easily approachable. If they have all these mood swings and you never know what kind of day they're having and what kind of mood they're going to be in, more than likely that person probably is not going to be easy to approach. Why would they not be easy to approach? Because you're concerned about what kind of mood they're in. And so you're nervous when you approach them, right? And so people that are easy to be approached, they have a consistency of mood. They display a consistency in their mood levels. Number four, they have a sensitivity toward people's feelings. They're sensitive. They understand that people have feelings that can easily be hurt. And so it goes back to the acrostic of think, right? Ask ourselves those questions. And so be sensitive toward people's feelings. Number five, approachable people they have an understanding of human weaknesses and exposure of their own. People who are easily to be approached understand that they have weaknesses of their own. They look in the mirror and they see, hey, I've got a lot of weaknesses. But in that, we understand our human weaknesses, and we understand the exposure of our own. We understand that everybody has weakness, okay? And we understand that, then it's going to be much easier to approach you because you have that understanding of human weaknesses. And you're going to be sympathetic towards someone who may have a weakness. It may not be your weakness. It may be one of your strengths. But because you have an understanding of human weaknesses, then it's going to be easy for them to approach you because you're going to have an understanding of them. And so that individual is going to be much easier to approach. Because I believe approachable people are honest about their abilities and shortcomings. They're willing to be told not what they want to hear, but what they need to hear. And they're easy to approach. Number 6, I believe people who are easy to approach have the ability to forgive easily. And they quickly ask for forgiveness. They have the ability to forgive easily. By the way, is that easy or difficult? It's not an easy thing to do, right? But I think the more ability that you have to forgive easily, the more approachable you will be. And then number 7, I believe, is authenticity. You got to be real. You got to be genuine. When people come to you, you got to be genuine. Don't put on a front. Don't put on some kind of mask, but be who you are. People who do not pretend to be something that they are not are authentic people, and they will be somebody that's much easier to approach. They're real. Again, they're who they are. They have no hidden agenda. They say what they mean what they say. Approachable people are at ease with themselves, and that puts others at ease. And so that's the approachability principle. If you're going to have good relationships with people, then you got to be able for people to approach you and them feel comfortable approaching you. And so that's the approachability principle. And then number 3, which is number 5, technically under the trust question. And I'm just going to mention this. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth on this one, is the foxhole principle. The foxhole principle. The foxhole principle states this: when preparing for battle, dig a hole big enough for a friend. Because when you're in a battle, you need somebody alongside of you. You need what he would call a foxhole friend when you're in battle. And the question we got to ask ourselves is this: am I a friend that others depend upon during difficult times? By the way, this goes back to the trust question, right? Am I a friend that others depend upon during difficult times? Turn to Ecclesiastes chapter 4, and we'll get ready to close here in a second. Ecclesiastes chapter 4. It's after the book of Proverbs. Chapter 4. Look with me beginning in verse 9, and we'll read down through verse 12. 2 are better than 1, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. Again, if 2 lie together, then they have heat. But how can one be warm alone? And if 1 prevail against him, 2 shall withstand him, and a threefold cord is not easily or quickly broken. What is Solomon telling us? 2 are better than 1. It's good to have friends, right? It's good to have somebody that you can count on when you're going through difficult times, when you're in a battle. It's good to have that foxhole friend. It is said that when Benjamin Franklin signed the Declaration of Independence, he uttered the words, and I quote, "We must indeed all hang together, or most assuredly we shall hang separately." We must hang together. By the way, shouldn't that be a characteristic of the church? That we have foxhole friends in the church. And there's 5 things to keep in mind before you agree to do battle with someone. Let me give you these 5 things and I'm done. These are not like 5 points, all right? 5 quick things and we're done. 5 things to keep in mind before you agree to do battle with someone. Foxhole friends are few. By the way, somebody said if you have 5 true friends, you are better off than a lot of people. because foxhole friends are few. I'm talking about they get in they get in the battle with you. When the bullets are firing, they've got your back. Foxhole friends are few. Number 2, foxhole friends provide strength before and during the battle. In other words, they're not going to leave you when the battle comes. They're not just going to be a friend before the battle, but they're going to be a friend during the battle when the times get tough. Number 3, foxhole friends see things they see things from the same perspective. Foxhole friends see from the same perspective. They see it through your eyes, and you see it through their eyes. That's true friends, right? That's foxhole friends. Number 4, foxhole friends make a difference in our lives. By the way, I would encourage you to write down those foxhole friends that you have right now. Foxhole friends, because they make a difference in our life. Those that you can count on. When the going gets tough, they're not going to leave you nor forsake you. We know we've got one friend like that, right? His name is Jesus. But it's also good to have some friends in flesh that will be with you in the foxhole. Because foxhole friends make a difference in our lives. And number 5, foxhole friends love us unconditionally. They love us unconditionally. No matter what happens, they're going to love us. They may have to reprimand us. They may have to talk straight to us. By the way, a true friend will do that too, right? But a foxhole friend will love us unconditionally. By the way, isn't that a great picture of Christ? Aren't you glad that He is a foxhole friend for us? That He's a friend that will never leave us nor forsake us. Well, you have the foxhole principle. When preparing for battle, dig a hole big enough for a friend. You have the approachability principle. Being at ease with ourselves helps others to be at ease with us. And then you have the first principle, the Bob principle. When Bob has a problem with everyone, Bob is usually the problem. I hope these 5 principles under the trust question have been a help to you. The bedrock principle, the situation principle, the Bob principle, and then the approachability principle, and then the foxhole principle. Any comments tonight about any 5 of those principles? And I'm done at 1 till, just for the record. Any questions or comments on any of these principles? All right. Well, thank you for being here tonight. A couple of things real quick. Remember all the announcements. We had an email to go out today. And so I want you to be praying for a couple things. First of all, we're going to have, if you signed up to come for our Dream Team celebration, that is here on Saturday. And so we're looking forward to that. It's our first one ever. And so we're excited about that. It will be right in here in the auditorium. And because of that, we need your help. If you can help us for about 5, 10, 15 minutes, many hands make light work. I think we can knock it out quick. We need to stack up these chairs. Because we're going to need to move them out of the auditorium. We'll be laying the tarps in here, and then we'll be having the Dream Team celebration in here. I was going to call it a banquet, but it's not really a banquet. But we are going to have food, amen? And so it's going to be in here. And so we need your help with the tables, with the chairs. And so we need to get them out of the auditorium. So what we're going to do, Andrew's in charge of this, and so if you have any questions, Andrew's the man, all right? But one thing, and I haven't really got to talk to Andrew about this, but on the sides, they are kind of a different shade, the majority of them anyway. They're darker. So if we can stack all of this side up and all of this side up together, so we can kind of keep those together, so when we bring them back in Saturday night, we'll know exactly where they go. And so you can just kind of stack the sections together. Okay, and I think we can probably do them in stacks of 6. And so if you can help us stack, then we have 2 chair dollies that we'll bring, and we're going to put the majority of these chairs into the room right across the hallway. Hopefully we can get the majority of them in there. And so that way it doesn't affect the CP Kids classroom and Miss Glenda setting up. Anyway, we're excited about that. Be praying for our Easter Sunday. Be inviting. By the way, we have some Easter yard signs out here. There's some left. They're actually from last year. We just whited out because we're not actually having an Easter egg hunt this year. And the reason for that is because we have no room to do an Easter egg hunt. Our parking, all the grassy areas are used on Sundays even now, and our numbers are going to be much greater on Easter Sunday. And so this year we decided to do Easter goodie bags. I know it's a little out of the norm. Anyway, so we're going to try to figure out maybe something the following year. But they're going to have eggs. They're going to have a goodie bag. It's going to have candy. It's going to have eggs. And maybe even I don't know, maybe some of the little kids, maybe they can hunt eggs in the classrooms. I don't know. But we'll have that available for them. Trying to come up with a solution, but we're out of parking, all right? So which is a good problem to have. Anyway, be praying for Easter Sunday. Take a yard sign. We've got some invite cards coming in as well. Like and share all of our social media. We have it on Instagram. We have an event page. Go in there and let us know that you're coming. Not just interested, by the way. If you just click it, it's going to say interested. I hope you're more than interested. I hope you'll say you're coming, all right? So we've got like 33 that's interested in it, so you may need to go back and actually double-click it, and it'll say you can click on going. And then also we have the video publicizing our Easter service, so like and share. The more you share it, the better it will help us, okay? You can't share it enough, so just keep sharing it, and let's get the word out and be praying for the services. We'll be having baptism as well on Easter Sunday. I've already talking to several that hopefully will be baptized on Easter Sunday, so pray that they follow through. And so we're excited about that. Okay? Any other announcements? Yeah, Church United. March 17th, that's a couple weeks away. So anyway, we'll have Church United. It's going to be at Holland Baptist this time. And so I think Brother Matt Kidd will be preaching. Yes. Is the 15th? Yes. If you have any questions, call Sherry Baub. If you need her number, I will give that to you. It was in the email today as well, but that's March the 15th. Yes, thank you. I knew there was one other thing. Hey, so Sunday is daylight savings time. Spring forward. You will lose an hour. All right? We don't publicize the other one because if you forget that, then you'll be early. But we do publicize this one because if you forget, you'll be late, okay? And we don't want you to be late. So move your clocks forward 1 hour. We will have donuts for you, okay? Krispy Kreme donuts. As one preacher said, and when I get to heaven, I just want to be glazed. And so we'll have Krispy Kreme donuts for you when you come in. And if you have kids, they'll have Krispy Kreme donuts in the classroom. So they don't need the double dip. All right, at the cafe or out in the hallway, wherever we have the donuts, they will have them in the classroom, okay? And so keep that in mind. Hey, Brother Paul, how are you? Brother Paul, you have something? Yes, media training. I have media training on Saturday as well from 2 to 4. So if you're interested in the media or you're already on the media team or you're interested, be here. Paul's going to do some training with you. That's from 2 to 4 right here. Coffee and donuts provided. Amen. We're just going to fatten everybody up this weekend, okay? Brother Mike? They should be okay. A couple may fall out, and we'll just kind of put them back in there. But they should be okay when we're moving them, because I think the dolly will keep them in there. So if they start falling out, we'll end up taking them out.
And we're leaving the tape on the floor, right?
Yeah, leave the tape on the floor because we have the tape down there for them to know where the chairs go back on Saturday night. Okay? VBS sign up as well, March 10th. All right? God bless you. Thank you for being here. Thanks for your help in advance for staying and helping us with the chairs. Any questions? See the man over there, Andrew. Thank you for watching our live stream today. If you are new to our ministry or you would like to know more about our ministry, I want to encourage you to visit our website at crosspointesuffolk.com. to find out more about our ministry or to watch some of our services as well. If the Lord has spoken to your heart today and you've made a decision for Christ, we would love to talk with you about that decision. Please give us a call at 757-923-9059. Or you can email me at pastordavid2460@gmail.com. Again, thank you for watching today. Here at Crosspointe Church, our vision is to create a community of authentic believers and to witness a city that is transformed by the life-changing reality of the gospel as people come to know Jesus as their Lord and Savior. Our mission here at Crosspointe is to make disciples who make disciples. Thank you again for tuning in today, and may the Lord bless you today.